Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming and joining us for today's Learn and Share session, The Currency of You, Unlocking Your Personal Brand and Bank on Your Expertise. This event is part of the Eastern Academy of Management Learn and Share series, which provides a platform for professionals and academics to come together, exchange ideas, and explore innovative practices that advance our work in management and education. We appreciate EAM's commitment to fostering these learning opportunities, and we're grateful for their sponsorship of this series. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Hume Johnson, a brand-centered leadership coach and associate professor of communication at Roger Williams University. Hume works with individuals, organizations, and entrepreneurs to unlock their personal brand so they can stand out as trusted experts and industry leaders and achieve their career goals. A former journalist and speechwriter, with the government of Jamaica, with over 20 years of experience as a practitioner academic, Dr. Johnson is an expert on personal branding, leadership and development, and strategic communication. She serves clients across several industries, including business, politics, healthcare, academia, and the nonprofit sector. Dr. Johnson is the author of 3 books, including the popular personal branding guide, Brand You, Reinvent Yourself, Redefine Your Future, now a featured text in 2 MBA programs in strategic leadership. We are delighted to have her here today, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Johnson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farkle. Good day, everybody. My name is Hume. Thank you so much for joining us for this Learn and Share on how to build a thriving side hustle with your personal brand. Can I just say that when I attended the EAM conference in Providence earlier this year, this was my first EAM conference, and I was stoked to see a panel on side hustles. And I thought, it wasn't just an academic conversation or a theoretical conversation. It was a tangible discussion by faculty who are already doing their side hustle thing. And I thought I should congratulate the organizers for their foresight and for the courage to engage such an important conversation. And of course, that's where I met Dr. Farkle. My ramblings and my rant throughout that panel clearly found ready ears with her. And so I'm really grateful that she invited me to extend the conversation around side hustles. Now, this is one of those topics I'm really, really passionate about. And I think it's because of my own embodied experience having to get clear about my own personal brand, to build expertise, and also to cultivate credibility and authority around my expertise in order to establish my own side hustle and practice as a brand-focused leadership coach and a communication consultant. Now, when we talk about side hustle, some people think we're talking about having a second job. So they're like, I'm not really sure. But a side hustle, when you think of it, it's really about the side projects that people do in addition to their primary job. And it's really project by project. So the income that they're earning can vary from client to client. So you're really on a 1099 income, as opposed to a second job where you have regular hours. And that's more of what you call as a W-2 income. And I'm not a tax expert by any means, but that's how you look at it in terms of the differentiation. And a lot of middle school teachers throughout the summer, they tend to have like a regular second job. So that's not what we're talking about for faculty. Now, I want to share a quick story with you about an encounter that I had that was really the catalyst for me to take seriously establishing a side hustle and really to redefine my career. And as you know, as academics, many of us grapple with the discrepancy between our dedication to the job and our compensation. And I was one of those people. And I remember always going into the chair's office, the former retired chair of the communication department at RW, and we'd have these conversations. And I'm always complaining about my salary because every single time I get paid, every 2 weeks when I see my salary, I would feel deflated and discouraged. And I'm telling you, I still feel that way, but not as much as before. And I remember one day she said to me in a very pragmatic way, why don't you build a website and do some of the stuff that you were doing in Jamaica, just like that? She said, that's why we hired you, because you had that deep professional expertise, which we thought the students could benefit from. Why aren't you kind of leveraging all of that outside of academia? I am telling you, it was quite a revelation. That thing never left me, that comment that she made. Obviously, I knew that we had a collective bargaining agreement and I wouldn't get paid increase arbitrarily. But what it said to me was, I realized in that moment that I had tunneled myself. In Jamaica, I was a broadcast journalist. For first 2 years, I was full-time. Then after that, I was reading two newscasts, 5:30 p.m., 6:30 p.m. So in the days, I was moonlighting as a political speechwriter with two of the government of Jamaica senators. I was a political consultant for the party, and I was a publicist in the reggae music industry, working with one of the iconic reggae artists, building their brand and the brands of the artists on their label. Beyond that, I was doing these workshops for public speaking for executives. And obviously, if you're on the TV every evening, then people are flocking to this because they do really want to improve their communication skills. I was a hustler. And I think when I left Jamaica and I did a PhD and I had this notion of becoming an academic, I think what I did was to allow all of those skills and that expertise and all of that hustle economy that I grew up in to recede into the background and focus on scholarship. I focused on my research. I focused on service to the university. And you know how it is when you're pre-tenure and you're trying to do all the steps that you need to take in order to get there, then I forgot who I was. I forgot what my fundamental skills were. And what the chair was saying to me in that moment was, your skills and your expertise were valuable assets that could be leveraged outside of the academic sphere. And it took me several years to actually take her advice, to be quite honest with you, because, obviously you're still in the tenure process. But when I finally did, the results were transformative. I tell you that one of my first clients in the United States was a prominent political figure. She was actually running to be Secretary of State for Rhode Island. And after our training with her and her staff, she said that my training was part of what got her elected. And I had students involved in the training, and they were so excited and stoked about this whole process. And it really ignited a passion in me to build my brand further and to leverage my expertise to a wider audience. So that is what I really want us to talk about, because it's not just me. There is a surge in side hustle. And I want to have this conversation with you because 1 in 3 US workers now say that they have a side hustle, that a project that they're doing beyond their primary job. And more academics are reporting having a side hustle. Why? Why does a side hustle make sense for us as faculty? Number one reason is to combat low pay and attract new streams of income. Now, if you are a faculty with full-time and you have a generous salary, such as many of you in the business faculty, you may not need to take on a side hustle. But if you are a lower in the category of a lower income faculty member, you may find that having a side hustle is very, very important for you. Now, quite a number of academics I've worked with as clients in the past are just getting into academia as assistant professors. And a lot of them still have student debt from doing their masters, from doing their PhDs. And some of these folks have skills that they've wanted to leverage. Now, a lot of folks are also looking financial stability. Face it, a lot of academics live paycheck to paycheck. And I was one of those people where you are struggling. There's very little wiggle room in your salary, but you're committing to a full-time job. And working as a professor can be very rewarding. I'm not gonna sidestep that. But depending on your economic situation, then a side hustle can present you with that financial stability. And academic life generally doesn't provide us with the financial stability that we deserve. Then there are also an opportunity to pursue your passions as well. I'm very passionate about leadership, and it's only recently that I've started to really reorganize my teaching to include leadership development in a more active way, because a lot of us have interests outside of academia that we don't get to pursue, and a side hustle is a wonderful opportunity to do that. I worked with a client last week who has a PhD in educational leadership, and she spent the whole time talking about teas. I mean, I love tea. And eventually I had to say to her, I know somebody who has a tea business in Providence. I'm going to hook you guys up, because maybe this side gig should be the main goal, because she was more excited about making tea and selling teas than she was about educational leadership. And I think that sharing our expertise outside of academia, not just in a classroom, is very important as well. There's so many challenges within industry and within our community, and we don't have to tether ourselves to an institution. Some of us want to create our own vision rather than trying to fight a university, which, as you well know, sometimes it comes across like an immovable object. And you can create your own vision for your life, create a business that is more fulfilling. It's more aligned with your values, with your expertise, with what you want to do, even while you teach. And so part of it, one guy from I think University of Maryland, he said that he was busy fighting his university so much that he realized that, why don't I just create my own vision for myself? And I thought I took a lot from that. So today, here's what we want to talk about. What is your brand and why it matters to building a side hustle? And I want to give you some insight into the process by which I help clients to build their personal brand, like the foundation of it. And then how do you position yourself as a go-to expert in your field? And I'm going to explore some of the side hustle models that academics can take on as knowledge workers, because my interest is in what your expertise is and how do you bank on that expertise to really become what I prefer to call a knowledge entrepreneur, and then marketing yourself so that you can have success in your side business. So it is your turn. You can pop it in the chat. Tell me what comes to mind. First thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase personal branding. Don't think about it. First phrase, first idea that comes to mind. Social media. Robin says social media. Anything else?
The chat is available for you on the bottom of your screen for attendees.
Social media tends to show up a lot. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make, professionals make, is to equate personal branding with an influencers as well. Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes people make is to equate personal branding with social media marketing. And they think that once they have a website or they curate a digital presence on social media, attract a following, get likes, then they'll have a compelling brand. But one of the things I have to say is that that's like putting on the roof of a house first. It looks pretty, it's great, but it has no foundation. You can't determine on what premise it stands. And one of the challenges is there's a lot of confusion out there about what personal branding is really about. And so I can't blame people for thinking it's about marketing, because branding emerged from the world of marketing, about distinguishing products in the marketplace. And so people are thinking, oh, I'm going to market myself in the same way that I market a product. But humans are not products. We are complex organisms with unique emotions. We have different cultural upbringings. We have myriad ways in which we show up in the world. And so to simply reduce us to marketing as if you would market a product is the wrong way of looking at it. And so part of it is to take an architectural approach to your personal brand. And you're looking at what are the main pillars? And I think Joel says marketing as well, yes. And that's usually the case, because a lot of gurus are over there on social media telling people to simply just get a social media presence. In fact, I sat beside a faculty who's at the full faculty conference last year, and she's done with academia, so much so that she's already got a recruiter and she's looking a job to get out. And I said to her, well, you need to start building your brand around your expertise. And she says, oh, yes, I already have a website. So I didn't say anything, obviously, but I smiled to myself because she's reduced her brand to her social media. But your social media cannot substitute for what your brand is. So when you strip it away, and Joel said reputation earlier, when you strip it away, for me, your personal brand is simply who you are and the unique value that you can deliver in your industry. Not everywhere, in your particular industry, who you are at your core and what you can deliver. This means your personal brand is you. It is a combination of your personality traits. I prefer to call these your human skills. It's also your job skills, the technical skills, the functional skills that you have, your knowledge and your expertise as well. It's also your experience. And I'm not just talking about your professional experience. We can all talk about how many years we have had working in industry, whatever. I am also talking about your life experience. I can impress you with my qualifications and how many places I've worked in the past, but I've also traveled the world. This is my fourth country that I'm living in. There are so many mistakes that I've made, things that I would have done differently, the lessons that I would have learned from having made those mistakes. For me, that's currency. That is the currency of you that I'm talking about, not to mention your core values. This is the core of who you are. This is your beliefs, the standards that you live by. And when we talk about a person's authentic self, we're really talking about their personality and their core values. And so you can't escape that. You can't ignore that if you're really trying to build a solid personal brand. And then because somebody mentioned reputation, it's some people say it's another name for your reputation. I think it's more because your reputation tend to be the perception of others. So your personal brand it also lodges itself in the minds of other people. It's what they think about you. But it's not only that, because it's almost like if you leave that up to people, then you're saying you have no agency over your own brand. But it's what you say about yourself and what you know to be true about yourself and what you want to be known for. But it really must align with what other people think as well. If people have the same notion about you that you have of yourself, you tend to have a stronger brand. When they think differently than what you think about yourself, then your brand needs some work. It is not as strong as you think it is. Now, sometimes when I talk to academics about personal branding, they think I want to strip away their core identity as an academic. No. If you think of your personal brand as you, essentially you're looking at your human skills and your core values that make up who you are as a person. And I believe if you're building an academic brand and you want to stay within this space, then your brand has to show up in your scholarship. Who you are and what you can deliver has to show up in your pedagogy and your instructional practice. If you believe in justice, social justice, if you believe in equity, then it has to show up in the stuff that you choose to consult with on campus, because I think we're consultants up there for free. I think you'd have to choose, what committee am I going to join? Is that aligning with my values and the expertise that I can deliver? It should show up in your messaging, in your communication, in the subjects that you choose to teach, in the content of your lectures. So your personal brand is not separate. It goes with you wherever you are because it's you. If you choose to leave your institution, because you've taken your brand to your institution, and when you leave your institution, you're going to take your brand with you. So everybody, I always encourage academics to kind of figure out what your brand is. Outside of this space, would it be the same thing? Because it should be, if you recognize your brand as all of these components of your expertise, your knowledge, your core values, who you are as a person, etc. So why does it matter for your side hustle? I mean, you could start a side hustle just dry. You could decide on a product and you're going to sell it on Amazon. And it may work out. You may do good research and you may find the ideal product and it may work for you. But my goal is to get you to think of you yourself as a knowledge expert, as a knowledge worker, existing in a knowledge economy, in an information age. And when I look at faculty, every time I go to a full faculty conference, I'm thinking, wow, there's so much power in this room, so much knowledge, but all we do is to give it, we're boxed in and we're only delivering value in the classroom. And frankly speaking, not all the time it's appreciated. Sometimes the students are not even our ideal audience. We have to beg them to literally find value in what we're saying. So I'm saying beyond this core market that we have in front of you, there is a whole other market out there that you can access. And a personal brand helps you to stand out and to differentiate yourself. You could have a sea of side hustles. There are tons of people doing finance or economics or I often talk of Brené Brown and Adam Grant, who I follow on LinkedIn. I mean, there are hundreds of psychologists doing the same thing. Why do they stand out? And I think it's because they have created a solid personal brand and they know what their unique selling point is. It also helps you to build trust and to build credibility. There's no way you can be successful as a knowledge entrepreneur if people don't trust you. People buy what they like, they buy what they trust. People, they will listen to you. If I trust you, if I like you, I'll buy whatever you're selling. So if you want to build trust, especially if you're just starting out and you don't yet have a track record of accomplishment within industry, selling your products or your services, whatever it is, then here is where you connect with people with your personality. Maybe they see that your core values align with theirs and they're willing to buy from you or to listen to you because however you present, they are tapping into that. It also, for me, a strong personal brand, it's a magnet for your ideal clients. For me, I know who my clients are. I'll get into that a little bit later. I'm very clear about who I want to talk to. And sometimes I joke and I say that undergraduates are not my audience. I teach them because I can, and I'm very good at conveying whatever I need to. I can get them where they need to go or where they want to go. Are they my ideal audience? No. My brand has helped me to attract the kinds of clients that I want to work with, those who know what problem I can solve for them, those who know and connect with my core values. And though some of them pick me just because they think I'm funny or they like my personality and this is what they want to connect with, because there are thousands of other coaches that they can work with. But why do they choose you? You have to establish and be clear about what your brand is to get that. And it also humanizes your business. You guys know this more than me as business faculty. Entrepreneurs now, people want you to get from behind your products and your services. They want to get to know who you are. They want to buy the person. They don't want to interact with a inanimate object or just an entity. They want to know the person, the individuals who run this business, and they want to build relationships. And it's best for you to also bank on their loyalty as well by building those genuine connections with them. And last but not least, you can command premium prices when you have a solid personal brand that people trust. I started out by charging $100. I'm ashamed to say $100. And people are even crying down my price. And I just didn't know my value. I'm not sure if we have even time to get into it, but I'll share something with you. When I came to this country, I moved here from Australia, but I'm Jamaican originally, and I went to school in New Zealand. And somebody called me one day at the office and they said they're going to put me up for a keynote speaking role. Wasn't promoting my business or anything. People know me from Jamaica. They know who I am. So sometimes if people ask me to do something and they're paying, then I'll do it. But I wasn't promoting a business or anything. And she said, we need a keynote speaker, the Tampa Bay Law Society, and you're going up against the Buccaneer coach of the Buccaneers. I'm ashamed to say, Americans in the room, I didn't know anything about the Buccaneers. I had no idea about American football. I still don't. And she asked me to send my package, and I sent her some stuff. She asked me what my rate is. She claimed I told her $1,500. I'm sure it was more. I did say something else, but she loves to tell the story. And she said, okay, Hume, I'll tell them $10,000 plus travel. If the earth could have opened and taken me in, I would have dived right in out of shame, because I literally just didn't know what my value was. Later on, when I researched it, apparently you can, if you have a book, you can charge a certain price. If you're a university professor, you can charge a certain price. If you have a PhD, if you have numerous experiences, if you've done this, if you have social proof yourself and you can back up your value, then you could charge premium prices. Now I know better, but I'm learning the hard way about some of these things. So here's where I want a little action, where this is my process of how I help clients to build a brand. You can't start on social media. That is just a tool to communicate and convey your brand. It's not your brand. So let's start with your personality traits. If you could pop in the chat for me, how best to zero in on the right target audience. I'll get to that, Joel. How do you, what's your strongest personality trait? Pop that in the chat for me. The one that you think is a strength. Some of us, we have a lot of personality traits, but which one of your personality traits do you think is a strength because it serves you well in different situations? Somebody says dynamic, courage. I like that. Reliable, very good. And here's an example of some of them. Humility, great. Somebody asked me recently in a session whether you can have executive presence and be humble at the same time. I should write something about that. Diplomatic. I need some diplomacy, Alexander. I have none of it, like 15% diplomatic skills. Humor. So Stephen says a sense of humor is a strength. Intelligence, outspoken, determined. And so these are strengths for you. I call these human skills. I think Simon Sinek, I stole it from him. I think is right, because thank God for the pandemic. If we could thank the pandemic for anything, really, it would be that suddenly we were realizing that our human skills were actually skills that could be leveraged within the workplace. We always knew that we wanted to work with people who we could get along with them, we could work harmoniously, and we could get the mission. We knew it. Subconsciously, we knew that we wanted good team players. But I think after the pandemic, this was empathy was the word of 2020. This was the word that they wanted every leader to have. That if you weren't empathetic, then you're somehow not a good leader, which it was always true. So how do you use your human skills to attract clients? How do you connect with a potential client? How do you show that your personality traits can convey the kind of image that they want to hire or they want to listen to? And that is how you start to craft the foundational elements of your personal brand. Integrative, visionary. Sometimes, Joel, I'm not so into the LinkedIn kind of jargon, the corporate jargon, because when you say integrative and visionary, I'm not getting solid human words. I'm getting technical workplace jargon. And so sometimes when I work in a corporate environment, I would ask the client to, can you break down that for me and tell me what is it that you're actually saying about yourself in that sense? Resilient, driven. All right, so let's move on to the other one that I think is fundamental to who you are at your core, which is your core values. Now, your core values are consciously or unconsciously, we make every decision based on our values. It is what we believe in, is the standards that we live by. People can't see inside of us. And so the manifestation of our values come from what they see us do. Can you write for me in the chat what one of your big core value is? I'm not talking about the core values of your university, because sometimes if your personal values don't align with your institution's core values, then it's a misalignment. You're going to have to find another job. Or you're going to have to find a way to navigate all of that. Integrity. Thank you so much, Mariana. So good to see you. Inclusion. And if you are inclusive, how does that show up in the work that you do for clients? Can you convey that in a pitch? Because sometimes it's not as great as our expertise is. Sometimes you have 10 people coming up for the same opportunity and they take the person who they feel align more with their values. You could be sharp as a tack if you're not aligning up with their values, or they simply don't like you because your personality doesn't jibe with them, then you're not going to get that opportunity. That is why it's so important to recognize this core part of yourself. And I remember training a client to pitch, and she's a lawyer. And I said, outside of all these wonderful things that you do in immigration law, why should they pick you over all of the lawyers in your office? And she says, I'm very committed. I give the same commitment at 8 a.m. as I do at 10 p.m. She also will fly to Detroit to meet a client in person. That's commitment. And I thought, that is what you should sell. Sell that, and then you will land more clients. And it has been very successful for her. So our values tell us what we stand for, what we don't stand for. It shows us who we vote for. Yes, I went there. And who we don't vote for. It tends, consciously or unconsciously, we make our decisions by that. I tell my mother I believe in family. She doesn't agree because I went to live in New Zealand and then I came home for 5 minutes and then I got a job in Australia and I left again. So clearly you don't believe in family, but I returned closer to Jamaica. So I'm a little bit closer to them right now. So the next part of it is really looking at your area of expertise. Because at the end of the day, we want to know what you can do and what you're good at. And if you're going to succeed at a side hustle, you could be beautiful in your personality. We could line up with core values. You still need to do the job. We still need to know what is your expertise, what's your area of specialty. I'm not sure what you guys do, so can you share with me what your area of specialty is? And when I say area of specialty, it could be sustainability, communication. I prefer you even get even more specific than that. Because if you say management is a big place. So what is your expertise? Somebody says leadership development. I would say leadership development as well. But what area of leadership development? Because that's also very wide. Resilient teams, what does that mean? When you say resilient teams, do you help to make teams more resilient? Do you have a formula? Somebody says taxation. Can you do my taxes for me, Alexander? And taxation is a big place as well. Mentorship development. So these are broad areas of specialty. But when I talk about expertise, I kind of want to drill down on what specifically your expertise is and how you choose a side hustle. You really, and somebody asked this question earlier in the chat, you really have to think about what problems your expertise solves. It really just comes down to that, because you can't just choose it because you're passionate about it, because you do have to choose it as well. Does it solve problems for other people? Because that's when you're going to get clients. People are going to want your services and they're going to be willing to invest money to get you to help to solve their problems for them. Because there's a problem over here and then there's a solution and you are in the middle. And we're thinking beings. I'd like to think that we're thinking beings as faculty, and that's our job. So if we can help to solve problems, and if you can be clear about what problems your expertise solves, then it's about niching down. I think that's the other slide I have, in terms of how do you define your ideal client? Aside from figuring out what problem you can solve, then who are they? Who do you want to work with? Are you only working with women? Do you work with men? Do you work with teenagers? Do you want to work with corporate people? Do you want to work with the C-suite executives at the top? Do you want to work with middle managers? I prefer middle managers, even though I get a lot of the super important people, but I like the ones who are on a pathway and emerging leaders. I always think my students are emerging leaders because I believe that leadership, you can be a leader in taxation, you can be a leader in teams and building resilient teams, and when we say resilient teams, your name comes up. When we say taxation, your name comes up. That is how I'd love for you to think about your brand. So you want to get crystal clear, and I think most of you in this room know this more than me. Demographics, but I love to get to pain points. What are their problems? What are their pain points? This is me giving a presentation with the Rhode Island Foundation, and they have this equity leadership initiative, and these are physicians, social workers. There is a judge in the room, anchors on the TV. There are all sorts of people across industries in Rhode Island. All of them, they want to pivot. They are stuck. They feel dissatisfied in their jobs. They need clarity in their career, and that's where I come in. I know what their aspirations are. Some of them already making a lot of money. Money is not their concern, but they may want to pivot sideways. They may not be doing some of the things that they want to do in their industry. Some of them, the doctor in the room, she wants to not work for a hospital. She wants to set up her own practice. And so where do they hang out? Because if your audience is over at LinkedIn, as boring as LinkedIn is, I think it's boring. If I'm over in Instagram and my audience is over there on LinkedIn, then we're not connecting. We're at the wrong place. And I like to build, I'm a storyteller, so I like to build a story around my client. I know they have a name. One of my clients is called Timmy, and Timmy works out of town. And I use Timmy in every presentation. Timmy works out of town and he has to adjust to a new environment. I have a story, they have specific characteristic. Timmy has 2 kids. And so what it does is to help me to tailor my message. And so when I'm talking, and they taught us that in journalism, when the teleprompter was in front of us, my producer would say, in the early days, she said, it's one person. Talk as if you're not talking to the entire Jamaica, you're talking to one person. And it was so helpful for me to become a better broadcaster. So I'm saying to you, who is your ideal client? What are their characteristics? What is their story? And can you respond to that? What are their problems? What are their aspirations? And can you respond to that? And that's when you get people wanting your services. This is something I want you guys to think about. We won't have time for you to do it today, but this is what I do in my personal branding consultations and in my online class. We get to, having done all of what we talked about before, then we have to get to a clear brand statement. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? How do the people benefit? So I help. Who do you help? I help. You have to be very specific with that audience. Drill down. I help mid-career professionals to, what do you do? To unlock their personal brand and to leverage it. Why? So that they become trusted experts and leaders in their niche. So for whatever it is that you do, at some point, it has to come down to a clear statement. So I say, Robin, so hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. What do you do? You should be able to tell me, not, I'm associate professor of management at Nichols College. Everybody wants to tether themselves to an institution, whereas I'm more interested in really what do you actually do? What do you actually deliver? And how do we benefit? That's how I know whether I'm going to need your services at some point, or you can be hired in some way. And I learned the hard way, because when the Secretary of State had won and she invited me to a couple of events, I was busy introducing myself, telling them all about Jamaica and they should come to Jamaica. I mean, granted, I do my research on nation branding as well. And she stopped me one day and she said to the crowd, she's the best communications coach I know. I don't know why she's telling you about Jamaica. So I was not connecting the dots at that point, and I was missing the opportunity to sell myself and to sell my services. So the next thing is, you do have to position as knowledge workers, as brilliant faculty. We have to position ourselves as the go-to expert in our niche and a niche leader. Everybody is doing financial analysis. Why are you the expert that we go to? Why do we choose you over everybody else? And I love to tell people, expertise is not just what you know. Expertise is actually what you share. Because if we don't know that you know, for me, you're not an expert. Because I don't know that you know, you're at the back of the room, you don't share your knowledge with anybody. So the people who know less, they're the ones getting ahead because they're positioning themselves in their field. This is some examples of what I have done over time. I remember I was a broadcaster. To speak is second nature now. I was trained, but it's second nature now. And so I appreciate every time I talk to academics, even though we talk to students every day, you would think that we're all confident, but there are a lot of academics who prefer inwards to stay in, but there's so many variety of ways in which you can position yourself. It doesn't have to be speaking. Speaking for me, because that is my strength. It works for me. And so I position myself within the media because it's just, I'm used to it. As a public speaker, I collaborate with others. And this was an industry conference in Boston in 2022, simply based on a documentary I was a part of. One of my students, actually, was working there after he graduated. And apparently they were looking for leadership coaches. And he said, he shot up his hand in there. He had left for RW maybe 7 years before. And he said, I didn't even know where he was. And he said, I know someone. And so he called me to do that. So it's interesting that a student got me this gig, and they did pay 10 grand for 45 minutes at their marketing conference. It sounds like a lot, but I mean, the people on the main stage were getting $45,000 and $50,000 for their thing. So I'm grateful to that student. One of the things I say to people is that you have to build a brand offline. Your social media is a conveyor, and people with strong personal brands, Einstein, I can think of, they existed long before the proliferation of social media, and they still had compelling brands doing their thing. So for me, if you build your brand offline, then you'll have something to talk about when you go online. So speak at local events. Some of it is going to be free. If you don't have speaking chops. And then the reason I'm also saying do some things for free is that if you want to be a paid speaker, you need a speaker reel where it's a little edited thing for 3 minutes and and they want to see you giving expertise. Or if you're a speaker, then you want to see yourself, they want to see you on stage. Even if it's just a little clip, whatever you're doing outside of the classroom, take a little video of it so that you have, you can pull together a speaker reel. Contribute ideas in writing. You can write quietly. Writing validates your ideas. We already write a lot in our business. Take some of it that you think would match some of the problems in society. Make it a tip sheet. 5 ways to do your taxes this year. Simple ways to get your taxes done in an hour. People want that kind of information. I know we're academics and we tend to talk in a certain way that people don't want to listen to. So, so simplify it. Think of what the audience may need, your ideal audience. What are they looking for? What kind of confusion they have around tax time, and then respond to that. There are tons of academics on Substack and on Medium writing quietly, articulating their ideas and putting themselves out there as well. Self-publish, the little book in the middle here, I self-published, and it's being used in 2 MBA programs, full of typos, by the way. I published it on Amazon. And I'm surprised that for my academic books, I maybe got $10 one day from an academic publisher. And then this book, royalties show up in my account every month from somewhere. That means people are buying the book. I know Robin bought one. So thank you, Robin, and Marianne bought 2. So thank you so much for that. Attend industry events. I often invite my students. It's me and my students at the medical school in December 23. So I tend to invite them. I was talking to physicians about personal branding. And it was that awful time with the bridge, and students still made an effort to get downtown. And so we can bring them to our work, and we can also bring back our work into the classroom and collaborate with professionals outside of academia. I think with academia, we tend to be very tunneled. We go to conferences and we talk to the same people. The same people hear our ideas. When we publish, only other academics are reading our ideas. And I think that we have so much to offer that I think that we should try to be more public facing, colleagues. Do you want to launch the poll during the Q&A? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading that Robin is asking me after. And volunteer. If you believe in sustainability, why am I not seeing you at the sustainability rally? You have to show up in those places. Those are the things that you now put online. And most of the academics I follow, they only talk about their students. They only talk about the papers that they're writing. Boring. Tell me some stuff. Show me some stuff that you're doing outside of academia. Because to be public facing, do some public stuff, get involved in the community. Even if you're walking your dog, I want to see it. Because I think that connects, because they see us as so separate from industry that they need our expertise, but sometimes they pick other people because they don't know that we can actually help. And they don't feel a connection with us. I call my URL Hume University, and a marketing professor said, maybe that won't work because people don't jive with university. And she's right. I can't change the URL right now, but she's right. When we hear university, it sometimes is a veil that we need to get from behind. You don't have to have a professional website. I just overhauled my website just this year, this summer. I didn't have a functioning website, but you can optimize your LinkedIn profile in a way that communicates what you are about. If you want to sell academia, great. But I think if you are going to talk about your expertise and you can create a side hustle around your expertise, then your LinkedIn should be promoting what your expertise is, not your classroom stuff, and not simply that you're an associate professor of management at Nichols College. Sorry, Robin. And this is an example of mine. You can check me out on LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Hume Johnson. You can see what I put on mine. When I create my brand statement, and I've evolved my brand statement over time, then that's what I convey on my LinkedIn. And remember with LinkedIn, when you're looking at people scrolling past you, they're only seeing your picture, what you write at the top, and your billboard. I just wrote to a woman who was the diversity at our place, but she's a Portland State, and she has nothing on her billboard. It's a free billboard that LinkedIn has given you at the back there. Put something up there that conveys something about what you do, and convey what you're doing offline, online. Messaging is going to be very important. Some of the things that you're doing in academia, some of your research that has relevance to developments in industry. We have a new election. They're discussing the economy, people who do business, taxes. How can you relate some of what you're teaching to what's going on and post about that? Some people are more viewers on LinkedIn rather than leaders of the conversation. If you can become a leader in the conversation rather than just a follower, I think that's when you can raise your voice and raise your visibility. And obviously, you have to create content around your niche. And that's if you want to be a content creator, because you can do various other ways. There are various other ways in which you can show your talent. Which brings me to the side hustle models. The consultant is just a person who offers their skills on a project basis. And you can look at listservs of consultancy in your area, because industries are always looking for consultants in specific fields. And you can just explore and over the break and see what gives. It could be just a start in terms of seeing what is out there. I was an international election observer. My PhD is politics. I got called for the Commonwealth to be an election observer. They did pay for that in an election in South America. I was a subject matter expert because I do research in the past on transnational crime and the fear of giving information to the police and the situation of crime in Jamaica. And I was testifying in federal court 3 times as a subject matter expert for asylum cases, and I did get paid for those things. I mean, I was nervous as hell, but it's not a thing I want to sell. But it was an opportunity based on what my research was about. You can be a coach or an online educator, create courses around I mean, we create courses all the time, don't we? And if that's not your thing, you can be hired to coach. I've done quite a bit of coaching within industry based on the stuff, and people actually just see it on LinkedIn and they would reach out to hire my services. The writer, you can be a writer. There are publications that are paying for content. And I follow quite a number of academics in different fields over at Substack and Medium that are writing quietly and they're showing their expertise and people are following them. And there's a paid partner program, as you well know, on YouTube, on Medium as well. I wrote for Entrepreneur for quite a while, which this is one of the things I wrote about. And obviously, you can be a content creator if that's your thing over on YouTube. And e-commerce entrepreneur selling digital products with your information. You're a knowledge entrepreneur. And if you start to engage your expertise and raise your voice and raise your visibility, these are avenues that you can use to leverage your expertise and earn from your own knowledge and your own talent. I am not an expert on marketing. You guys could teach me a lot about how to market myself, because that's what you teach. Some of you teach marketing and the infrastructure of your business. I am not good at that. You guys could tell me a lot more about how to create that framework, because I wasn't seeing myself as an entrepreneur. I was still seeing myself as an academic doing a side hustle. But the more I do this work, the more I realize that I need to streamline my business. So I registered it a few years ago prior to the pandemic. And I am learning how to create the structures around it, something that people in management would be, that's expertise that solo entrepreneurs need from people in management. So, couple of success stories. This is my colleague here, Dr. Nikisa Gordon. She works at Rochester Institute of Technology teaching health communication. She teaches research and interpersonal. She loves research. She's a little nerd on the research thing, working with law firms throughout the Caribbean to do a health disparity research. And I'm going to tell you her business. She got $30,000 for the last project. I'm green with envy. And this is my colleague, Dr. Camille Gentle Spirit from Roger Williams. She is a social justice nut. Everything is about equity and social justice in higher education. She was literally beating her head against the wall, trying to get RW to do stuff. She even applied for a position so that she could advance stuff around equity on campus, was not successful, was just miserable at the lack of movement. And she saw a job, just one summer she saw a job at the North Star Collective. Some of our universities are part of that, where they do equity in higher education. And she's contracted with them, making a pretty penny, doing extra work for them, doing banking on her expertise, the stuff that she's absolutely passionate about, and finding space where I'm trying over here and not working out in my institution. Let me see if I can leverage this outside of academia. And she's been able to do that successfully. And we know the famous people that are the famous academics who are doing great stuff in industry. Overall, to me, your personal brand is the core to a successful side hustle, because it's about your authentic self, your personality, your core values. Everything we do starts there. And when you tie that to your capabilities and your expertise and your knowledge, that's when you build credibility. But that alone is not going to work. You have to be visible. And there are many ways to be visible. You don't have to be a paid speaker. You don't have to be out there on YouTube. But you have to find ways to be visible, either in person at local events, collaborating with industry professionals, or be visible writing a blog. But you have to be visible, and you have to raise your voice outside of the academic avenues. And you have to be able to effectively convey your value. Once you figure out what that value is, I mean, I have tons of templates that I often train people how to. This is exactly what you say. How do you convey your value? And you have to build community. We can't do this alone. We're solo entrepreneurs, some of us, but it works when other people are a part of it, and you can connect with other people as well. I have this course because I embody what I'm talking about. I've been embodying it for a decade. And I'm so glad that academia is willing to talk about side hustles, because when I talk about it, they look at me weird sometimes. So I do have a personal branding masterclass that I created, and it's excellent, if I may say so myself. I help you to define what your brand is and really ask the right questions so that you can kind of figure that out for yourself, what problem you can solve, what is the area of focus. I even have stuff where you communicate, what are the messaging, how do you communicate your value in any situation. And if you scan that little QR code right there, everybody, can you scan that? And you can learn more about that program. I don't know if you have any questions, but Robin, can you take it away?
Yes, so we did have a question here. So I recently was offered my first consulting gig for a project, and I have no idea what kind of money to ask for. How can I narrow that down?
Okay. For me, I always evaluate what their budget is first. Because if you're just starting out, you said it was your first consulting gig, I would ask what budget they're working with. And then you can determine, okay, you can negotiate and wiggle your way to your value. I did do like a whole spreadsheet on how many hours do I have to prep for the project, and literally write down the hours. Then you look at, do you have to do customer relations? How much time do you have to spend interacting with them? Do you have to do research? And then the actual project itself, how much time do you spend doing that? And then I always say to my clients, also think about the value of you. What is your own currency? And add that to your calculations around what is it? Yes, you have all this time that you can say, okay, I'm going to charge $250 an hour. But having calculated all of that, then what's the value of your expertise? I mean, you can't put a number on that, but that should give you a ballpark in terms of whether you want to push the figure that they're giving you and see if there's wiggle room. Sometimes they don't, they just have a budget and you want to be at the top of that budget. And sometimes if you negotiate, they'll add more to it. I hope that helps.
Excellent advice. And so thank you all for joining. We have a quick poll here. If you could if you want to take this poll before you leave for the day. And we thank you all again for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. This was a fabulous session. I learned so much. I can't wait to maybe take this master class and finally launch my business that I've been thinking about for so long.
I'm
So
so excited.
again, thank you all. Thank you, EAM, for
Thank you so
sponsoring.
much, everybody.
And we will see you very soon at our next Learn and Share.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you. So while we're still on, I wanted to say that as academics, we have a unique opportunity to not just make an impact in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom as well. And work is changing, industry is changing, and realistically, a lot of us are not going to get pay increases outside of the collective agreement. And I think that this is a great opportunity. And we live in this age where it's about a knowledge economy. And if we can really become knowledge entrepreneurs, and you'll see the examples out there of academics who are more public facing that are just reaping in. I'm not in their bank account, but they look like they're reaping in a lot. And they're also enjoying it. Every time I see Brené Brown, she's so happy. She looks very fulfilled in what she's doing. And personally, every time I'm working on my own thing about leadership development, I don't know, I get such joy while I'm driving to RW and having a panic attack. So there you go. There you go.
There you go.
Feel
Awesome.
free. I can help you out if you're interested with my personal branding masterclass, and I do other consultation if you're not interested in doing a self-paced online class.
Yes, I know. All right, so it looks like, has everyone who wanted to take the poll, has everyone taken the poll that's wanted to take the poll? Okay, I'm gonna end that poll.
Thank you guys so much, Monica, Cynthia, Mariana. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Robin, for pulling all of this together.
Excellent. We're getting such great feedback. Again, I thank you all for joining us, and we will have another Learn and Share coming up in April, and we look forward to seeing you at our Eastern Academy of Management conference in May. So again, thank you, Dr. Johnson, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.